All right, music lovers. Basically, Billboard decided to put out the comparison recently about Drake in 2021. Is he now as big as Michael Jackson or the Beatles during their heyday, basically during their peak? Let's look at some of the factors behind Drake's incredible chart accomplishments. So, okay. Certified Lover Boy was a hit. It's been doing incredible, topping the Billboard 200. Over 613,000 units sold in a week. Over 740 million streams on Spotify, and claiming 9 of the 10 spots on the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, this is like the Beyonce thing, but just even I would say okay. I think Tony Baker said it best, and he posted this on Twitter. Billboard was comparing Drake to Michael Jackson. Here's the thing with streaming. It's easier to get your whole album on the Hot 100 chart. To get top 10 singles was harder back in MJ's day. You needed radio play, radio request, and actually singles purchased. It's easy for people to just stream songs on a service that they already have. I listened to Drake's whole album, but honestly, I probably would not have purchased the album itself. Damn sure would not have purchased a single from it. The streaming age seems to make things easier for artists when it comes to the chart. So basically chart-wise. He even goes on to say in the caption on his Instagram post for his tweets, and I know people will be in the comments like, why are you hating on Drake? It's not that at all. Oh, excuse me. It's not that at all. This is coming from my nerdy chart watching side. I used to read Billboard magazines back in the day just because I'm obsessed with album sales and movie box office grosses and TV ratings. Streaming just isn't the same as how music was purchased in the past. Imagine an album like Thriller being released in the streaming age and what those numbers would look like. I was alive when Thriller hit the streets. It was crazy. And if you were born in the 90s, don't come up in here arguing. So, yeah, I was born in 91, but I wouldn't argue this either. Yeah, Twitter's been going back and forth. It's like there's no comparison. MJ was having grown men faint. And I'll leave a link to the article I'm pulling this information from because, you know, it talks about the charts and how, you know, Certified Lover Boy and the fact that he got 9 of the top 10 hits means Drake has broken Michael Jackson's record for the most Billboard Hot 100 top 10s from the same album. Previously, Thriller back in 1982 had 7 songs in the top 10, a feat that stood for 37 years. Drake also outranks Michael Jackson in terms of the most #1 albums, 10 for Drake, 6 to Michael Jackson. Most top 10 singles, 54 Drake, 30 Jackson's. Most consecutive weeks on the Billboard Hot 100, 431. And most Hot 100 entries, 258. Meanwhile, Michael Jackson still reigns supreme over Drake when it comes to the most consecutive #1 singles, 5 to Drake's 2. Thriller remains the best-selling album of all time with a reported 100 million copies sold worldwide. Look, I'm not going to get into it like this because of the fact that artists nowadays pump out music so quickly. I mean, some artists put out like 1 or 2 albums per year. And I'm not trying to shade Drake or anybody. Like, for example, wasn't it sometime in, was it last year? I think Taylor Swift won Artist of the Year at the American Music Awards. And that surpassed Michael Jackson's record of being the most honored performer. Swift had tied with Jackson for 24 wins at the AMAs, but then she won the favorite pop rock album during the AMAs last year, and that got her to 25, putting her as, you know, somebody who broke Michael's record. But, I mean, you just look, okay, for example, you know, back in the day, it was all about radio play and whatnot. But due to the streaming era, not to mention social media apps like the TikToks and the Facebooks and, you know, all that stuff, there are different avenues in which music can be advertised to people. Like, for example, Drake and some artists, you know, they make music specifically for a TikTok phase or, you know, a Snapchat dance or something like that. So I feel like there are a lot of successful people in current music who are able to adapt and create music specifically for a certain era. Now, I don't think a lot of artists, not to say those like Bruno Mars and The Weeknd, I'm not saying there aren't artists out there who aren't making music that's going to be lasting for a while, but a lot of the songs that break records nowadays, that mop up at the Grammys, the albums, the artists, a lot of those people I don't really see being remembered 10, 15 years down the road. You know, like they'll be remembered, but I don't think any of their songs are classics. So even though songs today might win like 50 awards, they're not going to be everlasting hits or classics like in 2000, like in 2150. I don't think anybody's going to be playing Drake music the way somebody would be playing The Temptations. I don't know, but you know, most likely won't be here by then. But I just feel like the arguments are just stupid. I mean, if nothing else, it just shows that Michael Jackson obviously set the blueprint because he's the person. I mean, yeah, the Beatles were mentioned too, but most people were debating the Michael Jackson comparison. Michael Jackson was the blueprint, so everybody's compared to that. I mean, like Beyonce, I don't think she is better than Michael Jackson, but she's very innovative. She's a determined worker, and she knows how to market. So when it comes to like Beyonce or Drake or, you know, other popular artists, I feel like they succeed not only because of the avenues of advertisement, like I said, social media and whatnot outside of just radio. I think they're able to craft narrative, or excuse me, craft music around certain things. But I feel like, you know, another thing that really doesn't get me interested in the music is the fact that there are just so many beefs, social media back and forth between artists and whatnot, that I feel like it doesn't matter, because back in the day, beefs were a big deal because there were so few of them. And then again, with social media, everything's kind of out there. So with Michael Jackson, Prince, there were so many people who kept their lives private. So can you imagine if social media was back in the day, you know, there wouldn't be as much mystery and intrigue around certain artists because everything would just be out there. So I think that Tony Baker's tweet said it best. You know, music is so much different in terms of how it's released nowadays that it just isn't the same. Like back in the day, artists would make an album and they can go on tour for like years based off the success of one album. But nowadays, if you don't put out an album every few months, people get pissed off because people demand music, and there's just so much music out there. It's hard to really absorb it. And thankfully, I got my hands on Billboard's Rolling Stone's article, or music, the Rolling Stone magazine with Silk Sonic, and I read over the article again, and yeah, that's why Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak, basically Silk Sonic, decided to not release their full album yet. They're going to wait until early 2022 because they don't want to be a binge experience. They want to put out more singles and let their album, you know, marinate, as opposed to putting it all out there at once and then it's forgotten about in like a week or two. But I feel like the Silk Sonic album, I really can't wait for that to come out, because I feel like every track on there is going to be a banger, as opposed to, you know, something that's going to be on the charts for a couple of days and fall off. So again, no shade to Drake. He's doing his thing. He's breaking these records. But it's like, you know, apples and oranges as opposed to apples and apples. I don't think comparing an artist in today's culture works the same way when you compare it to an artist from the 80s or 90s. Music is just done differently. It's almost as if, you know, there needs to be a complete rehash of how these award shows or accolades are given out, because of the fact that streaming isn't the same as going to a record store. Not to mention, on top of that, you just have artists who are producing so much music. You know, they're pumping out so much material. Of course, they're going to have more singles or more albums at number one than Michael or, you know, Prince or Whitney Houston, because when you put out, it's almost as if you're throwing, like, it's just like me on my channel throwing out videos. Sometimes I might throw up like 15, 20 videos at once. Only one video might be a hit that gets like a few thousand views. It's just one of those things. But again, I'm not saying I dislike Drake. I just don't think the comparison works. Like the Drake in 2021, yeah, your music gets a lot of streams, but I don't think you're at the same level of popularity of, let's say, a Michael Jackson, the Beatles, Prince, Whitney Houston, or hell, George Michael, when after he left Wham. But that's just my opinion. So let's talk about it more in the comment section below. It's just a useless debate, and it isn't like, oh, black people versus black people, why can't it be? No, it's not even that. It's just like the artists of today versus the artists of yesteryear. So that's really all I gotta say. Let's talk about it more. Like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.